And today I have the great privilege to be sitting here with Jacob Clark. Jacob was, along with Brianna Rader, the co-founder of SEAT, Sexual Empowerment and Awareness at Tennessee. Could you talk a little bit about why you felt that an organization like SEAT was necessary?
We recognized that in the state of Tennessee, we had abstinence-only education for sex ed, which meant that went into high school and then into college, where in a place where many of us and our peers were all sexually active, and realizing that we have really no idea what is correct and essentially best practices when it comes to protecting your health and protecting yourself and navigating the complications of human sexuality. Layered on top of that was a very pressing concern for wanting to do something about the rampant sexual assault that occurs on college campuses. So I think you arrive here, you learn really quickly how big of a problem it is. I think one of the inspiring moments for one of our early members was hearing people selling roofies on the pedestrian walkway. The administration either would not or could not, under the tools given to it, react and respond to sexual assaults in the way that we thought were necessary. So Brianna Rader, the other co-founder, approached me in the spring of 2012. And we had become close through class and through different student groups. She invited Megan Andu, like a sex ed and sexuality educator, to the University of Tennessee through Issues Committee to do an event. And it was kind of like a catch-all, everything you need to know, delivered in a way that was interesting to college students or is geared towards young adults. She saw me supporting that event, and I got interviewed about it by the Daily Beacon, and she liked what I had to say. That gave her enough confidence to share the idea with me and know that she could trust me with helping her build it up. So we decided this is what we're going to do. We want to do this at Tennessee. We want to model it after that was done at Brown and Harvard and Yale. And then we, from there, mapped out a game plan for what needed to be accomplished logistically. It took us 3 months, meeting several times a week regularly.
How controversial did you sense that this was going to be?
We really didn't receive any sort of pushback on it until it started getting negative news coverage. Mm-hmm. And that's where we realized that it's really impossible to make an argument. You don't get to make an argument to an author of an article before they write it and before it goes viral. But in 2013, everything was fine. Everything was planned. Everyone had signed off. We have everyone contracted. Everything's paid for. Everything's reserved. Everything was fine. But around that same time, 4 weeks-ish ahead, maybe even earlier, we saw an article from campusreform.com or maybe .org, which is just a conservative website primarily committed to conservative ideology and efforts on college campuses. They had written an article about us that was a little bit kooky. Not all the facts were wrong, but it was several things were misrepresented. And of course, primarily being what our mission was. Our mission was grotesquely misrepresented by the article, but it's a small group. And at least our understanding was that no one really takes this organization that seriously, or at least no one who was going to have an impact on what we were doing. But we shared it with the communications office at Tennessee. We shared it with the student Office of Student Life, Division of Student Life Administration. We socialized it. Everyone was aware that it was there. The advice back to us was, thanks for sending it, just keep going along. Let us know if anything changes. Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks. We're about 2 weeks ahead of the first sex week, and we get a call from a guy from Fox News who wants to write an article to post online. He's asking us about all of these things brought up by the campus reform article. We're like, okay, this guy's seen it, and we have a lengthy discussion with him, both Brianna and I, where we kind of correct him on everything. And at the end of the conversation, I think what we both came away with was, oh, he's probably not going to write anything now because we gave him all of the correct information, and it's not nearly as good of a story anymore. So again, we notified people that we'd gotten phone calls. They said the same thing. Okay, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Fast forward 1 to 2 days, that guy writes an article. It comes out, and essentially it's essentially like a repost of the campus reform article. Everything we corrected him on doesn't show up. It's just a complete falsehoods, and the writer cared nothing about getting the correct information because he asked us explicitly about every one of the things it just obviously misrepresented in the article.
What exactly did they misrepresent?
The main thing was, I think the source of a lot of the confusion and bad stories was that we had sent a document to the faculty senate several months before. I mean, you're looking at sometime early in the fall semester that had a list of programs that had been done at other schools, an extensive list. Part of it was just materials we'd sent to them to say, here, look at what all these other schools have done. And then in addition to that, here's what we think will work here and what we'd like to do here. So one disc, and also these notes were put online for them to have. That resource is not protected. Those materials were shared or found, something of that nature, because we were eventually able to go back and see where they had quoted all of these things. We thought, oh, this is the only material we've ever shared, ever, that has this information. So we know it came from there. One thing that they misrepresented was what the events we were actually planning on doing were going to be, because they had a list of other events. So some things that we never planned on doing. More like you think things like sex party type stuff that we just had no intention of doing. But at Brown, they had done what would be considered salacious things in a state like Tennessee. So we had that to answer to, and we had told them, of course we're not doing that, but it still made it through. They took several events where we had asked speakers who will speak and have spoken for other organizations, other universities, other groups about things like, BDSM or what people in a very conservative-minded world would consider not allowable sexual activities, anal sex, oral sex, all those things, like a very specific, almost like they branded them as like how-to courses. Like these people were going to come in and teach all of the students about, how to do BDSM, etc., which is not something we were doing that year. And we were inviting those people in because they were qualified to speak about the topics we invited them to come in and speak about. And even when we corrected that with the reporters who wrote the articles, early on, they failed to mention that's not what we were bringing them in for, and completely ignored 20 other events that fit exactly what we said our mission was. And then a third major thing is they misconstrued our mission. So we would share with them explicitly what our mission was, and sometimes they would even quote it back in the article, but then be very opinionated in saying that they didn't believe us when we said that was our mission. They would just say, well, that's not their mission, it's something else. And they wouldn't really support it with any evidence, but that's something that they did. So I think at this point you had just misinformation, things that we just weren't doing and never were. And then you had things where they took what we were doing and found something that was kind of related to it, but made it the story, not what we were actually doing. And then they just straight up took what we said and changed the meaning of our words. All of the things that a reporter can do to misrepresent your story were done. So we shared that. We're told the same thing, don't worry about it. Well, within 24 hours, it made it into the hands of several of the state representatives and state senators in the Tennessee Assembly. From there, they had called University of Tennessee administration and freaked out on them. The thing to understand here is that everything they had seen and read was 80% false, and they had no idea what the mission of the program was. This is maybe the best example of it. Senators and representatives from the Tennessee state legislature saying, we were doing an event called Queer as a Bug, and that's on none of our materials. It was in none of the articles. I think it came from this event that Yale did called Queer as a Verb, which just has something to do with sexuality, but doesn't even remotely mean what they think it does. And then they also just came up with a new phrase altogether. But we found that in every briefing. That phrase was in the resolution that they passed against the organization. Everything just got blown out of proportion. There was never clear, complete communication. Somewhere in there, we lost the support of our communications team.
Can you talk more then about the various measures that were taken to nip this event in the bud?
So the first year we had funding from academic departments, and we had some funding from the Division of Student Life. It came from a couple of different small funding sources within it, but essentially it all leads back to the policies that govern the money from the Division of Student Life, money that comes from student fees. And the state legislature said, take their funding away. Just take it away, cancel it, don't let them have it. And essentially that would end our program. They cannot or did not do that with student fee originated money because it's not money that is controlled by the state government. And it's much, much more protected by freedom of speech precedent than money that is tied to taxpayer dollars. But at the end, we had 2/3 of our budget removed. So that's the first thing they did. We got funding for the next year applied through student fees only and in personal or in like organization fundraising. So the second year comes by and they're mad about it again. We're doing it again. We're planning it. So they were well aware that we were going to do the event. And so these problems came about a little bit earlier and we saw them coming. So they threatened again that they were going to take away the funding. But the reality is that it was all from student fees and they couldn't. That is protected content. Essentially, there was nothing they could do. So they couldn't do anything, really essentially couldn't do anything about it. At that point, we developed a much closer relationship with Jimmy Cheek, with Susan Martin, with the administration. Both of them, went on the record multiple times saying that, and even Joe DiPietro saying essentially, they've done everything the right way. Even if we wanted to do something about it, there's nothing we could do. So the state legislature they accepted that because they knew, I think they got the advice from their general counsel that there was nothing else that could be done. But what they did do is formally condemn us. So both houses passed a resolution condemning the members of SEAT. So that was what seemed to be kind of the end of it. But we kind of felt like there was going to be maybe a bigger attack on the student event planning structure as a whole. So what they did from there is they put enough pressure. I can't remember if they actually passed a law requiring it, but I know what I think happened is that they put enough pressure on the administration by threatening components of our school budget and a variety of other things in order to pin down the administration into agreeing to do something to reform how students get the student fees. What they ended up doing for the next year is they said that students are able to opt out on student fees. So, they have a statement, when they're applying and when they enroll every semester that says you have to click yes, my student fees can go to events like this. And there's like a list of things they could go to, or no, I don't want my money to go to that. But regardless, you pay it, but it's just one gets allocated one direction, one gets allocated the other. So I think their thinking was well, at least students who don't want, even if it's just like a tenth of a penny of their $20 to go towards an event like this, it won't. So that was kind of the compromise. We'll do this and that'll keep them at bay. And so it did. And we got the funding again through the same sources because the students still wanted to do the program. We still had enough people going. And as you've seen in this following year, the state government has taken an escalated approach into managing how we promote and support issues related to diversity and social justice on our campus. So them taking away our money, in my opinion, started to let the ball start rolling and gave precedent to the state government coming in and making decisions about what we were allowed and not allowed to do and discuss on our campus. When it came to like short-term pragmatic or practical effects in that moment in time, taking away our money was not that big of a deal because we got it. We were able to fundraise it. I mean, it was really horrible in the moment, but we got it. We still did the event. The next year, they condemned us, which is just such a horrible statement to make. But when it came to practical changes on our campus, it didn't affect us that much. Students still overwhelmingly opted in. Events still got their funding. But this year, they're realizing that doing things like this can't really make a difference as far as legislating their morality and viewpoints on how we'll operate as a state school. They got rid of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion on our campus because of efforts that are certainly not the same, but similar, yet staff sanctioned. So, supporting the same types of initiatives, going against maybe the conservative grain to meet the needs of a student population. And so they did the outright thing and just completely defunded the whole division, taking jobs away from people and creating a pretty hostile environment for a lot of different student groups. In my opinion, the problems with the relationship between the university and state government have gotten worse. And I do feel sometimes like we removed the rug that we were hiding all the dirt under. I'm encouraged by the students who are there now, attempting to protect students on campus at a time when we need it even more now than we did when we were there. So I'm hoping that once you're able to share this, that people will find some value in knowing the history of how things went wrong and are able to better organize and prepare for lack of a better word, combat the systematic disadvantage we face. The program wasn't built to be a line on a resume. The program was built because we recognized something that we saw as a need, and that really helps you keep pushing when people start to tell you you're wrong for something that you believe is right.